Hello everybody, my name is Paolo Gaudiano, and I'm helping Light Reaction understand how perceptual science can influence performance advertising. What exactly is perceptual science? Perceptual science is a systematic principled study of those aspects of our perceptual system that influence the way that we perceive, and in particular, how we perceive advertising. Let me begin by showing you an interesting video.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
If you have never seen this video, there is a very good chance that you failed to see the moonwalking bear, even though the moonwalking bear was perfectly visible within the image. In fact, chances are that the MRC would qualify the moonwalking bear as being viewable according to its standards. So what is going on here? What's going on is that we are paying attention to something else and we fail to see the moonwalking bear. Now, why is this interesting? It's interesting because what we're trying to understand with perceptual science is how a stimulus ultimately generates a reaction. And we believe that in order to go from a stimulus to a reaction, several stages have to be crossed. The first of these stages has to do with noticing the stimulus. What do we mean by that? Well, if we look at a cluttered image like this one, we might fail to see that Waldo is just standing right there in the middle of the beach. This is not unlike what happens when somebody sees a very cluttered or an advertisement on a very cluttered website where the advertisement might be off on the side of the page. The next thing that needs to happen is that even if we notice an advertisement, we actually have to pay attention to it. In the context of advertising, this would be similar to saying that we may realize there is an ad in the right rail, but we may not pay attention to it. And clearly, the movie that we showed you a few moments ago would argue for why paying attention to something is so important. The next thing that has to happen is that even if we pay attention to a stimulus, we have to have a positive emotional reaction to it. And by that, I'm not referring to, oh, I like that ad because of something. It's something that is known to be the case, that when we first respond to a stimulus, we have an emotional response that could be fear, it could be positive, it could be negative. For example, if I'm walking through the forest and I hear rustling leaves, the first thing that will happen is that I'll jump out of the way and then I'll ask myself whether it's a snake or some other kind of animal. In fact, people have found that the content of images, before you even process them, can give you a positive emotional reaction, such as, for example, having a face or having warm colors in that image. Now, the next thing that needs to happen is that even if we have a positive emotional reaction, we need to then analyze the content and find out whether that stimulus is relevant to us or not. For example, let's say that we're walking through the forest and we hear a rustling sound again. We may realize that it's a bunny, in which case we may not care. But if we're out hunting, well, then our reaction might be slightly different because it has a different relevance. And in some cases, even if we recognize that it's a bunny, we may actually be quite terrified by it. So again, there are all of these things that we need to take into account in how a stimulus eventually leads to a reaction. And you can see how this is extremely relevant when we're talking about advertising. In fact, what will happen is that in advertising, if an ad fails to cross any of these stages, it will lead to a missed opportunity, which means that your ad will never have the chance to be evaluated by your consumer to find out whether it's relevant or not. I believe that this is one of the main reasons why the performance of display advertising is so dismal. 0.1% CTR, that's 1 in 1,000. What happened to the other 999? Again, I believe that a lot of those 999 opportunities are lost in the earliest stages of this perceptual pathway. And this is why perceptual science is so important to me and why it's so important to Light Reaction. Ultimately, we believe that it's only by studying perceptual science that we can maximize the performance of advertising. Thank you.